10 o'clock it is. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Wayne Patterson, and I'm on the committee here of Team Up for Hope. Welcome to our Growing Up in Today's World webinar. And before I get started, I would like to just share with you, the listening audience and the viewing audience, because I'm assuming you can see me as well, a little bit about Team Up for Hope. And Team Up for Hope is a all-volunteer non-for-profit 501c3 that seeks to address the impact of mental health issues, substance abuse, and suicide, and within our community here of Warwick, New York. And we do that by raising funds and awareness to our local non-for-profit organizations at the forefront of these challenges that we do face here today. I also would like to share that we do webinars similar to this one, and we've done a number of them. And if you were to go to our teamupforhope.org website, you'll see a button that says webinars, and you'll get to view and hear some of them, pretty much all of the webinars we have done. And they cover a full gamut. Like today is going to be, it's not going to be so much about substance abuse and suicide, but it could lead to, that. And I have a special guest. I'm not going to introduce her yet. So the webinars we use to enforce awareness and hopefully some education, resources for folks, and I'll be giving you some resources today, as well as our guest speaker. I also, before I even get started with that too, you've got on today through either you registered in our Team Up for Hope website and you're on Zoom, or you're viewing us on Facebook Live, because we are Facebook Live as well. Who has set this up, I can't go any further without speaking of Jane Tamala that works with us here, and she has set up all the connectivity for us to be able to view, hear, be Facebook Live, and be on Zoom as well. So thank you very much, Jane, for your help. And also, before I get started, I would like to acknowledge all of our service individuals that have died through active military service. And that's what today is all about. So as a matter of fact, after our webinar today, I'll be stepping right outside of my door because the parade will be walking right by my office. So that's going to be a full pack day for me in service. Now, our special guest today, and her name is Beverly Braxton. She is someone I met. Actually, I've known her for years because her and I are on some committees together in some service organizations here within Warwick, New York. And we sat down and really chatted for the first time, I think last year, really. And she is, I'm not going to say a lot about her because I promised her I wouldn't do a lot of talking today. I'll be doing a lot of questions and allow her to speak. But she has lived here in Warwick for about 50 years. She's created an organization called We The People Warwick, and she's done a number of things that like I was like, wow, I couldn't believe it. As a matter of fact, when I was telling people I was going to have Beverly on this webinar, they were like, oh my goodness, they were talking about things that they knew she had done. And every person I spoke to had something different to say about what she has done. So she has, I'll just say this, she talks the talk, but she walks the walk. And let me just say, um, once again, I promise not to do a lot of talking today. And without further ado, let me introduce you all to Beverly Braxton. Hey, Beverly.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm sort of nervous and excited to have this conversation. Nervous because unlike most people don't know that I have a shy part of me, and the exciting part is that this is probably the most important work to be talking about right now. And
Yes.
I want to start with like just thanking Team Hope. What is it called?
Yeah,
Team Up for Hope. I
yes.
think
Yes.
it's very important work, and I think I'd love to know more about you and work more closely with your vision of making our future well-being on the plate of everyone. So I'll
Yes.
just say a little bit about myself. I don't. Most of my what I do is about my own process, about my own growth and development as a person. I'm drawn to things that I have questions about. So one of the things as a teacher, I was a teacher for many years in Warwick schools, and I was always the kind of teacher that was looking to the light of each child. You know, what is their promise, their hope? And I operate from that kind of premise, that kind of lens, like where do we want to see ourselves in 5 years, in 10 years? So when I left school, this is a little backstory because it really ties into what I'm doing today. When I left school in 2010, I was still full of like this sense that there's more I had to do. And it had to do with when I kind of processed it, is children are growing up too fast. They don't have enough time to be children. They don't have enough time to be outdoors. They don't have enough time to not think about what they have to do or get done or competing. So I wrote a letter to the paper asking people to, tell me, are you seeing what I'm seeing? And I'm seeing something that in 5 years does not look good.
I
Because
know.
it was at that time kids were getting more and more cell phones, and cell phones bring in other people, other voices, other lenses, and other pressures. And now, I mean, that was 8 years ago, or I was thinking of this, and now elementary kids didn't have phones. Now every elementary kid has a phone.
And
So
we're going to talk about all of
yeah.
that, but I still want to toot your horn a bit. I still want you to toot
Huh?
your horn. I want, you've lived here for 50 years here in Warwick, and I know that you were a teacher, but I know that you were very instrumental in a program here that is called Pi, and I would like to for you to share some of the background of that, and what that entailed, and what the acronym stood for, and the school embraced it. I mean, but let me just shut up and let you speak now, because everybody that I spoke to, they said one thing and then they said something else, and I want everyone listening to know what you've done for this community. And teaching in itself is like a wonderful thing to be doing for our youth, but you've always taken it a step further. So if you could share this program, this
Yeah,
pie
when
program, that would be great.
the PI Partners in Education came out of a vision of, it came out when I was a child in school. I don't think I ever had any teacher ask me who I was, what did I want, what did I aspire to be. And so when I became a young adult and I was thinking about what to do and I thought about education, I'm like, wow, I really didn't like school. It never affirmed anything about me. I never saw my face in a textbook. I never saw my family being validated. So when I had the opportunity to offer with some other, people in the community, an alternative to traditional education, which basically at that time, 35 years ago, was children learning directly from books, not from life, but from books, textbooks that are real rigid and go don't change that often. And so we came up with the concept of partnering in education, like parents as partners with teachers, building community with children, keeping them for 2 years, getting to know them as human beings, and also getting to work with them in ways that were engaging, like to having hands-on projects and create some sense of their own power to create, right? So I think that's one of the things that I feel kids I don't know if I'm misreading this, but kids need more of a sense of what they can create. Their vision, I had kids in second and third grade that would tell me things that would just like be amazing. I'm like, wow, that's a beautiful thought, or even help me figure out a problem. So we're underutilizing our kids in terms of what their promises, what they carry around. They come with information, and they come with the aspiration to do something and contribute. So,
Now, no,
go on.
it sounds like the district embraced it, because you can't just come and start your own program. I mean, you had to get the okay from, of course, the school board to do this, as well as the administration.
Yeah,
So
well, every road is a rocky one until you get to the path.
yes, yes, and
So,
I had
it took some, any change is threatening to people. So, for someone to say, we would like to use a different approach or multiple approaches to creating education for kids, infuse the arts, literature as opposed to textbooks. That was not only is that scary, it kind of makes people think, well, aren't we doing good enough? It's a threat. So it takes a while to build trust and common ground. And now after 35 years, it's probably one of the longest programs as an quote unquote choice in this area. So
I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I was going to say I'm speechless. I'm never speechless, but it amazes me that you brought some real life situations about yourself and what you weren't getting and what you didn't see for yourself growing up and being taught. And you turned it into something that could benefit the youths here. And not only did you do it, but you got the school board and the administration to back you and agree. And I'm like, wow, wow.
you know I think it's
It's
really important, that process of helping kids solve problems. That's the basis of Partners in Education. For instance, after 9/11, and then towers crashed and the world, we're on pause with grief. I still had to deal with children who couldn't make sense not only of what was happening, but what was happening to their parents. That is terrifying to kids to see their parents cry and break down.
mm,
And I thought about it, and it was really hard, and I realized this is what this program is about. Let's look at it. Let's go deeper. What is it that we need to be doing? And the children came up with creation of a Peace Wall Memorial. And I walked them through the process of the educational process. What does it look like? What is the meaning of peace? What is the national symbols? What are the internationals? We did a lot of research. I wrote a
right.
story about that process. But those kids ended up designing a wall that will be around for 100 years. And not only that, the greatest learning for them, there's nothing they can't do if they put their minds to it. They see a problem, they know how to process it. And I think those are the kinds of skills and needs that kids are growing up today. They should be a part of the problem. I mean, solving the problem. Their voices need to be heard and brought
Well,
into the process.
it's
Yeah.
funny you bring that up, because we did talk last night that we should do another one of these webinars in the future, because this isn't like, we're not going to be concluding anything today. We're going to be
Not in this lifetime.
talking about, like growing up in today's world, and
Yeah.
today's world, and this pie is part of today's world. And I want to acknowledge and recognize you for that, because our children are still doing that program. And and it's it's very, very important. And along with some other things that we're going to be talking about that you're doing as well. But I just wanted everyone to hear that you came into a school district and you set up a program that's still in place today. And that's virtually sometimes impossible to do. I was on the
Yeah.
school board at one time, and it was tough to do any changes. I was like, oh my, it was just tough enough to go along with the curriculum, as you said earlier,
Yeah.
to just
Yeah.
do what you do. And for you to come along and have something that was enhancing and had people questioning whether or not what they were doing already wasn't enough, you had to have touched something in them for them to go along for the ride. And kudos to you,
Yeah.
for that
You
effort.
know, but I want to make sure that people understand that nothing like that can happen without a collective of people, or like a collaborative, like people kind of feeding off each other's creative energy and, problem solving. So I don't work well on my own. I mean, I love some of my ideas, but they won't work.
Right.
But, I think we have to realize, and I think I loved your name, Team Up, because we need to be working together. I mean, that's what leads to community and strength in a
Yes.
community. It's the collective. What are the different lenses and points of view, and how do
Yes.
we kind of the nuance of working with other people? It's
Yes.
empowering. It's
Yes.
really empowering, and people need to feel a sense of, they really need to get that we're the ones we're waiting for.
Yes.
There's nobody going to do this hard work but us, the
Right.
community, the people who live
Yes.
here. And
Yes.
it's doable. We have to
And
understand it's doable. Okay.
I wish we were able to, because we have a limited amount of time. The hour's going to fly by in no time. But I wish we could have had some of the listeners on the phone with us last night about some of the topics that we were talking about. And I'm not even going to bring them up because I don't want to get on a tangent. But before we go any further as well, Team Up for Hope was set up because of a, I'll just say it. It was set up because a family member of who set this up died of an overdose.
Hmm.
And it was investigated that there were mental health issues,
Hmm.
substance abuse issues, suicide issues, and that's what our mission is, and it's a mission for us, and it's an important topic for everyone out there today because it's happening every single day around us. So, and this Team Up for Hope, there's a committee and there's a group, and I'm happy to say that one of our team for Team Up for Hope is on the panel with us today. We weren't sure, and her name is Tiffany Megna, and we weren't sure if she was going to make it because she recently had COVID, which seems to be running rampant again. It's getting a new life around all of us. And she too was someone when I mentioned your name, Beverly, she goes, "Oh my God, Beverly," and there's some history there with even you and Tiffany, right? So welcome, Tiffany. And I'm glad you're feeling better. I'm glad you were able to make it today. And please, you can chime in at any point in time. If you're a little under the weather and want to keep the video off, that's fine as well. Just having you here is wonderful, and knowing that you're feeling better is a blessing. So welcome to.
So can I add my 2 cents?
You go right ahead.
I still sound a little bit like a frog.
Yes, you do, actually.
So 15 years of working for the Warwick School District. My favorite memories ever were the Pi days that I got to work with Beverly. Like, to watch her interact with children was a pure joy. She didn't teach, she facilitated. She allowed everybody to be who they were and encouraged them in a way that I just loved to sit back and watch and learn from. And she was the same way outside of the classroom, just always outside the box, always willing to do the extras, a community person with a heart of gold that would help and care about anyone in need. And for me, aspiring to be a teacher in Warwick, she was my role model for years and years and years. So when you mentioned her name, my exact response was, "Oh my God, I adore her."
Yeah.
And I don't have much to add to the panel other than, people like you have made an impact on people like me, and you probably don't even know it. And you need to know it because you're a legend. And some people aren't legends till they're gone. You're a legend every day that you exist.
Yeah. And she's still going strong, Tiffany.
Well, she will go strong
Yeah.
for as long as she's here because she's that kind of person.
Still
All right, enough with the praise.
and the reason
Hey,
I think the reason that's happening, Beverly, and we don't mean to embarrass you, because we knew,
Yeah,
I knew just from the little bit I know about you, you wouldn't have addressed any of this. You know, you would have just flew on,
exactly.
and we'd have been talking about some of the stuff you did, and you'd have been all nonchalant about it. But I got to say, it had an impact. It has had an impact on our community and our children,
yeah,
and that's
yeah.
part of the growing up in today's world because you're still in it and you're still having an impact. So, you know,
This is
And
how
she's
I work
still
on.
a legend.
now, Tiffany, I want you to still hang out because I do, want you to talk about what you're going to be doing tomorrow, but not at the moment, but, so if you can,
I'm hanging out.
if you have the energy. So now,
Well, let me just thank Tiffany. That was very sweet. It's very hard for me to take that in, but I'm processing it and breathing, and I'm getting better at it. So thank you. I very
yeah,
much appreciate
and you deserve it and more and more. So let me just ask, based upon, and you might have answered it already, but I want to say it anyway. Highlights, things that have stuck out over the 50 years, some highlights that have really captured you and moments over these 50 years.
I think because of something in me that are drawn to community, what I've been struck by is uh, even with all the teaching years I've had and listening to parents and understanding, the challenges we face raising kids, one of the things I continually hear is that people do not want to feel alone. They don't want to feel, it's a terrible feeling to think that you're the only one struggling with this. And I remember the first time after I was teaching, and I had a parenting workshop at the library, just to give a sense of all the pressures in our culture that are impacting parenting because people are unaware of it. They think it's just something wrong with them. And out of that process of talking openly about these things, there were 25 people there, anywhere from kindergarten through 12th grade. The thing that resonated the strongest is several people raised their hand because I always say, what are you going away with after this experience? Two people said to raise their hand and said, I am so grateful to know that other people are struggling with what I'm struggling with. Do you know what I mean? Like the power of that.
Yes.
And that was the affirmative in the room. Wow, it is true. It was hard for me to come out, but this is the reward.
Yeah,
I don't have to think I'm alone.
correct.
And I did that with the opioid. A couple years ago, I heard a parent call out from Pine Island. He lost his only child to drug addiction. I mean, he was just out open, daughter name, his name. He said, I'm warning you. I just lost my best friend. I'm warning you, it's coming. You better pay attention. And it woke me up. I mean, I didn't have anybody in my family with opioid. I mean, I have other situations in my family, but I was not paying attention.
Yeah,
And so I had these questions that surface in me. I said, as a community, what are we understanding about this problem?
right.
Is there a problem in our community what do we need to know? And I wrote a letter to the paper.
Yeah,
Anybody seeing this? Because I want to know the answer. And then I ended up realizing we had to have an open panel discussion. And I went around the county looking for people to say, I want to know, my community needs to know. And so we had an open discussion at the library. I had parents secretly writing me to thank me for bringing it to the open because they're living not only in grief, but in shame
right.
because people
And,
are going to,
and the stigma
yeah,
that goes along with it as
yeah.
well. Yes, yes,
And so my bringing it out in the open and actually getting parents who had the bravery to show up on the panel was really moving for our community. I even had police officers at the end say, it feels like I'm part of a community. People see what I'm also experiencing when I go out and find these young people. It's traumatic. And so I'm just saying we need those open conversations
yes,
about around these topics so that the stigma is lessened
right.
by us saying, yeah, I have that in my family too. And I'm glad to meet you because I'm having trouble figuring it out.
And what a perfect segue into We the People Warwick. And please share with
Yeah.
us how that came about, what it's doing, and where you're going with it.
Yeah. Well, Family Central, which is the first organization I started to support parents after that one, after one of those people said, I don't want to feel alone. I started Family Central, and its mission was to strengthen the role of community in supporting the well-being of children and their families. Now I've moved into We the People Warwick, which is the same thing, strengthening the role of community in creating a future we all want and we all feel affirms us and that we can all thrive. So essentially, how do we make the how do we create the future that would secure the safety of young people growing up today and give them voice and also acknowledge their struggles and be there as adults who promise, support and hope. So I think, let me just say a little bit about We the People Warwick.
Yeah, please.
So one of the things I had learned is that I've worked with one of the things about teaching is that as a teacher, you don't choose who you work with. You're the family. The families just show up and you interact with them and you learn about the complexity of human beings and families, and everybody loves their children. So everybody wants to feel a sense of belonging and a sense of connectedness. And the only way you're going to get that is feeling like you're in a community that sees you and values you, right? So I wrote in the paper, could we imagine ourselves bigger? We really are capable of imagining a bigger, more promising story from from whatever we're experiencing. We can imagine a different scenario rather than grief and suffering and sadness, right?
Right.
So I felt like, let's get together, imagine what we could do. And I started thinking that one of the major problems we have is just listening. And so I thought, I've always tried, because I, as a person myself, had trouble communicating as a child and young adult. I'm determined. I'm determined to sort of communicate better. So I'm always learning, how do you do that? And so I did a lot of training over the years. And then I decided, well, why don't we create dialogue circles where you're setting up a situation in a room where people feel safe to speak their truth. And how do you do that? It's very strategic and it's very skill based. So we do trainings in dialogue, which allows everyone allows everyone to bring their story to the table. It allows people to be curious and ask questions in ways that are inviting. And then we move from those 4 sessions of dialogues, which, what is your story? Where did you grow up? How did you get shaped to see or not see people? How did you get to see who has more value than others? And can we shift that in the way that we listen to people? And so out of that, we decide on some action the group can take that will that would cross all sections of our community. It's not about one group benefiting more. So what we came up this time is story share. This Wednesday, we're having story share because one of the things that we think is most critical about connecting is listening to our human stories. And a lot of them
I
are
see the
fun and
flyers
adventurous.
everywhere.
Yeah, and stories been around for thousands of years since humanity. So they're the things that build empathy and connection. So we're having our first story share this Wednesday. Please come out. It starts at 7:30, and there are going to be people in our community telling their stories. Just
Now,
personal 5-minute story.
now, what I'm going to be doing while you're speaking, I'm going to put in the chat your what you sent me, the Instagram, the Facebook,
Yeah, yeah, and they can find out more. Yeah.
so that they can find out more information on their own time. But you please continue speaking.
Yeah. And so I don't have people just come and join We the People to just hang out. Like, we're here to do something. We're here to make change. We're here to contribute to a positive atmosphere in our community and actually be the soldiers in the field, so to speak, of creating well-being for everyone and acceptance for everyone. So, so we have the story share, which is under the education and events team. We have another team where we looked at what is another issue that crosses all political boundaries, all cultural boundaries, and it's mental health. we all have issues in our family with, I struggled as a child for many years until I was a young adult, until I had children, which saved me. I was a very fragile person, and that leads to my compassion for people, because I know what it's like to not have the ground solid under you. So I focus a lot on listening to people and building connection with them. So the mental illness or wellness piece is something that we're focused on. This month of May, we wrote the people in that committee wrote letters at least once a week on some aspect of mental illness and wellness. Recently, one of our members, Elizabeth Mayling, wrote a big article about just EMS workers. We don't even we take so much for granted, that they too suffer from, overwork and stress and anxiety and trauma, saving people, right? So that was an important one.
Right.
And then our current one, which I think is one of the most interesting and most powerful, is youth engagement. I've never not learned anything from a child. Children are so great at teaching us lessons and also showing up and showing us what we're not seeing.
And
And
they're
so
transparent.
we have youth engagement
Yes.
work committee that is focused on, let me just say what we were talking about. We recognize that most of public problems, from crime to racial tensions to substance abuse, directly involve and affect young people. And yet there is little chance in most communities for young people to be involved in decisions that affect them, or even invited to take action and lead. And I think that's one of the critical things I think we need to be focused on. How do we help young people know that they are important, that they do have answers to these problems, and that we want to support their vision, because we can benefit from it. So we try to create opportunities for young people and adults to talk candidly about youth issues, develop new ideas, and collaborate to solve problems and reach goals. So we're going to be writing something in the paper. We're going to be doing a community-wide survey on what are the interests, what's going on with youth, what would they like to talk about. We're going to ask parents what they're noticing and seeing in what ways we can have a conversation, a community conversation around those initiatives. The other thing we're doing is we're looking for, we just finished up on a dialogue series just a week ago, and those people will have an opportunity to also identify something that in our community that when they work on it will make a difference for everyone. So I'm really looking forward to that. That's going to be on June 11th. So are there any questions so far? Or?
I just, what I have no questions from any of the listeners, but what I want to, I guess, add is that there is no limit or age limit or of people that need assistance, that need help, that need some guidance. And I'm just discovering it with people that I know, and as well as what you're experiencing with We the People Warwick. But what I would like to ask now is, was the efforts with the Family Central what led you to the We the People? And can you talk a little bit about
All of these things are connected.
And because we were talking about, we were, we're calling this webinar, it's today's, growing up in today's world. And I want you to touch upon some of the things that are happening today, so we know PI is still going on. And I'd like to, for everyone that isn't aware about family, because I didn't know about Family Central until you and I spoke about it, and it's right here on my back door.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's so important about the communication and opening up our different windows, right? And seeing what's
Tiffany,
going on.
before we go in, Tiffany, are you familiar with Family Central?
Don't put her on the
I
spot.
am. I wasn't. Tiffany, were you aware?
No.
Okay. Well, listen to this. It's going to blow your mind. I'm just going to tell you that right
I'm
now.
all ears.
So it's an all volunteer nonprofit organization that came about by 90 people showing up in our public library like 6 years ago. After I asked people to come and tell me what their concerns were. And when they came, I had some organizational skills, fortunately. And so there were 90 people, right? And so I had figured out no matter what number came, I would have them in small groups. And I'm always saying, identify what it is that's your major concern, but also identify what you can contribute to working on that problem. If you don't have the skills, identify somebody in the community that can be of service for that, resolving that concern. And so right away we had concerns. There were people saying, wow, other people are thinking the way I'm thinking around these issues. But also we had resources and knowledge and next steps, identify the people who were there. So I think that's the most critical piece is sort of like I keep saying, we are the answers. There's nothing that we can't do in this community because we're representative of the human population and we have a creative mind. I mean, that's the treasure of being human. And we need and it's underutilized around community, believe me. We need to activate it. And I think when young people see purpose and meaning coming from adults and, an effort to be inclusive and supportive and to learn, it's nothing more powerful for a child to grow up under that, because that's that's the message that their life has that same promise, right?
Right.
And we appear that we don't have the answers. We are just saying, well, I don't know what those politicians are doing, but they're not doing their job. We're not doing our job. Our job is to take care of each other, or at least be curious about each other.
Right.
So from
Yeah,
Family
and
Central, let me just go over some of the things, because what's
please,
in your little
please.
note about what this is what is our greatest concern? My greatest concern is that we have this present moment. In my mind, I see young people looking at the adults around them and not feeling very hopeful. And that terrifies me because that terrifies them.
Right.
Okay. Now, one of the things 6 years ago, maybe it was 6 to 7 years ago, I started thinking about what are the challenges? Why do I think children are growing up too fast? And so I started listening. This is way before this present moment where it's like in our face. But back then I said, there's a lack of creative play and time in nature. Children need to be, when I started seeing them on these machines, on these little gadgets, everything's a gadget. Everybody's being marketed to buy stuff. And I'm like, these kids need to be out I used to say to kids in my class, you don't know about mud? A lot of them said, no, I never play. I'm like, you cannot have a life without mud, So, I would create some activity where we use mud. So I'm just a lack of creative play and time in nature. Now they're saying time in nature is the most critical thing for reducing stress and anxiety. Overscheduling. Okay. Kids, not only do they have to be on a rigorous schedule. Kindergarten is not even a kindergarten. It's first grade, master's kindergarten. Kids are under so much pressure to excel. And not only that, to be well-rounded. So they have to be in every sport, or at least, a music lesson. There's so much pressure. Where's the downtime? They don't really know how to really fall back on their own sense of what is their body like, what's going on in their body, daydreaming at the stars, or not daydreaming at the stars, but the clouds. And where is the time where they just are having time to be curious about bugs? It's fewer and fewer kids does every kid have that lack of experience? No, but a lot more of them is healthy for our community. The other thing I had, addiction to media and technology, we talked about that a little, but the problem with addiction, and back then it was just, I was thinking, they were being exposed to too much adult topics. Today, the media that they're connected to on their smartphones is informing them all the time about any kind of violence that's happening, any kind, like they have access to so much information that it's not healthy. I also just mentioned aggressive marketing to kids, making them think that they can't be whole without, the latest gadget or the latest outfit, the latest makeup, the latest cologne, whatever. And I had kids in third grade wearing cologne. You know what I mean? It's like, no, you don't need cologne. You need to be out in the dirt. School pressures, I mentioned. So that even kids who are leaving college, I mean, preparing for college, or maybe they don't even want to go, but they have pressure to feel like they have to because they're not going to get a job. Getting into college is even more competitive and more expensive, and fewer and fewer parents can find support in that way, offer support in that way. Prescription drugs, it's more common now for kids, young kids, who have a lot of anxiety to be on some kind of medication just because they can't not just because they're not sleeping, they're not feeling well, they're not feeling hopeful. It's scary not only to them but their parents. And of course there's a very uh, easy slope into illicit drugs by the time you're an adolescent. And we know what happens in the brain. Well, most of us know the brain function around that, around an adolescence, I mean, an adolescent's brain development is still premature, and it's really, they can't really make sense out of everything that's happening with them at the rate that it's coming in. So that causes stress. A peer-oriented culture. I was telling my husband in 1997 when Married with Children came out and it was the most popular show in the nation. I said to him, this is not good because it's sending a message to young children that they can criticize their parents. Their parents are dummies. The parents don't know any more than them. And now we have this, most kids are listening to their peers more than their parents. And do you know what I mean? And I feel that that's not been good for our kids growing up. To make light of, like, I have lived experience. So someone telling me something and I'm like, well, my lived experience, being that I've been around 30 more years than you, has repeatedly shown me this. You know what I mean? Like, but to dismiss older people or grandparents, well, a lot of people love their grandparents, but they look at us as if, we're in a whole other era. What you have to say and what you've experienced is not relevant. Human experience is relevant, believe me.
Right.
Uh, and right now, violence. Do you know when I was a kid, we used to have these drills under the table for what was it? Nuclear. It was like bombs. After World War II in the
Yep.
50s, we all the
And
you
you had
don't
to
know
get
how.
under your desk and all that
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
up
yeah.
there.
But we never saw anything. It just petered out. It's not petering out for kids who are from the time they entered. They're now in college and they started in kindergarten. What? Doing drills for gun violence. And it's not going away. So that can be very discouraging and frightening to kids growing up. It's not ceased, it's getting more. So what are they carrying around that? So those are the things that I'm most concerned about. And I think a lot of us are around children. And
Let me just add this too, because the next time we get together, we had discussed this yesterday as well. It would be great to have some youth on the
mhm,
panel so we could hear it straight
I would
from
love that.
the horse's mouth on what is going on out there, because you and I and
Mhm,
Tiffany and people that are listening, we have our ideas of what's going on with our youth today and what we see and what we hear, especially if we have children. You're hearing it from them.
mhm.
But ideally, it'd be great to have them be able to share pretty much what you're saying and more, because I'm sure there's a heck of a lot more we aren't even aware of. That's
Yeah,
going on.
I did that a couple years ago through Family Central. I didn't, most people I love, what I love about what I do, most people I'm contacting, I've never met before or I've not talked to before. So I had this idea of having high school students come and do a panel discussion for parents around technology. This is like 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And what happened was I had about 6 young people from the high school. And I generated some questions around technology and I posed it to them and they answered as the parents listened. And basically what they were saying, yes, we've grown up on it and this is what we're concerned about. And one of the questions is, what most concerns you about kids coming up today on technology that you now understand is not in their best interest? And they told the parents. and they told them all the ways in which kids can get around stuff on around their controls or whatever. This was like 3 years ago. It's probably changed rapidly since then, even. But those kids told everybody in that room who was an adult something they didn't know. And I'm saying that's where we need to be. We need to be looking at them. They're on the ground. They're going to school every day. They're listening.
Right. But let's even take it a step back further, because I know part of your initiative with Family Central, actually, before you even go any further about Family Central, if there are people out there that are listening that want to ask questions, please do so in the chat. I'll be happy to pass them on to Beverly. So just keep that in mind. If there are any questions, please put them in the chat, and I'll make sure that Beverly gets them. I also put Beverly's the We The People Warwick Instagram, Facebook, and website in the chat. You probably want to, it wrapped around a little bit, so you probably want to cut and paste it so you can find out what We The People Warwick is all about, and some of these forums that she's talking about that are coming up. I know there's one on Wednesday that will probably be exciting for those of you that have interest to be a part of. So that's that. So I'm sorry now, but the Family Central, I wanted to address what initiatives you did here. You didn't touch upon,
Oh yeah.
and that's a big deal going back to even birth with our little ones, and so I'm not gonna let you get away
Yeah.
without tooting your horn again, so talk about this, please.
When Family Central started, I went around the town and just asked strangers, what are you concerned about? Would you be interested in working with me on creating a parenting support network? And one of those people who came out of that conversation was a nurse at in the maternity ward at St. Anthony's. And she got involved with We the People. And then she said, I think because from the moment of birth, that's when mental health begins. We should be doing some like preventative work by providing parents with information around bonding with their children, less gadgets, have them tear out the cabinet. I know people are inconvenienced around kids going in cabinets, but that's how they learn and that's how they grow up in a healthy way, rather than just handing them something that's a gadget. Give them a spoon and an oatmeal box. So we decided to come up with a package with not too much material, but essential things that we felt contributed to the well-being of a child growing up. Because I knew by the time as a classroom teacher I saw kids, we missed 5 years of really helping them. Really, before they even get into school, we should be focused on them.
Right.
So we give them, we call it we call it the newborn welcome bag. So every newborn child in St. Anthony's gets a packet. They get a bag that has the first child, a book for first book for a child. It's a board book to encourage reading. And reading is just not reading for a young child, even a baby that can't really understand what the concepts are. It's the language and the development of language and the bonding and the connection. It's magical how important that is in terms of health and well-being and mental wellness. So we give them their first book. We give them information about, the struggles of parenting and not being hard on yourself, and also ways in which children learn best, and even at developmental scale, because we talked about the levels of development, right? Like from this period of time, from birth to 3 months, certain things are happening in the brain. From 3 months to 6 months, certain things are happening, and how you can feed that brain in a way that builds the kind of well-being in a human soul that they need, right? And so we give that to every child that's born in St. Anthony.
That's
And what's so beautiful about this? Somebody heard about it one day, or maybe something happened where someone had been knitting up a bunch of blankets, and someone gave them the idea to donate to the hospital, and we started putting all these blankets now that were being sent into
wow.
the hospital by people we never met, who were making them for our bags. And we
Right.
did that for a number of years until
I
COVID.
know.
Every bag got a community, somebody made something that we would put in it as a continual sense of our community loves the fact that you're born here and that we are here to welcome you. So it was really a way in which I was conveying to people who have children born here that you're in a community that loves you, wants to support you, will come out for you, and don't hesitate to reach out to Family Central. So, it was an affirmative in that way.
I have some listeners that are sending, some folks that are out there listening, sent in a chat that their daughter hid from a bear at school to practice for an active shooter drill. I'm not sure I understand that fully.
My Aria's in school. She's pre-K. They told her,
Oh.
oh, there's a bear in the hallway. You guys gotta get in. I picked her up from school and she told me we're gonna turn the lights out. You gotta hide in the corner. There's a bear in the hallway. And she told me, yeah, the bear came up to the door and jiggled the knob and everything.
Wow. 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 Well, I'm going to say, let's go back, Beverly, to the fire alarm drills where we had to get under a desk, right? You remember that? Like, I'm thinking a bomb goes off. I'm not really sure being under the desk is going to help us too much. Even back then, I said, well, didn't make sense, but it's just different times now. Now we have to dodge active shooters that are walking around in the one place that we thought would be the safest for our children all of our lives. And look what has happened, Beverly, right?
You know what? It's so funny it's not funny, that story I just heard, because I don't know how that young child responded to it. I think people are trying to do the best they can to protect children, right? And we don't really know the impact that's going to be, even with our best gestures, like the bear story. Some kids would feel all right about that. Some kids aren't. But when I was teaching at Sanfordville, when it first opened in 2000, I remember someone coming up to me, with someone who had just moved into the community, who said they wanted locks on every door. And it just seemed so extreme to me. I mean, they wanted the way we do schools today, they saw that in 2000. And I looked at them with disbelief and I said, that would never happen at a school. Never.
Yeah.
And look where we are. I mean,
Surprise. Quick question. I have a question out there for you, Beverly, regarding Wednesdays.
story here.
Please, that place and time.
Yeah, it's going to be at, Wickham Woodlands is where the old prison used to be, off of Kings Highway, right? It's shortly beyond King's School, but on the right-hand side, beautiful down there. You should find out about it, even if you don't go to stores here. But anyway, we'll have signs out, but if you turn there, we'll have a sign saying turn. And then the first right-hand turn past in between a white mansion looking place, and I guess it's called Drowned Lands Pub. It's a beer distillery thing. You drive back towards the ball field, which is, I can't remember, Happy People or something. Right there is the manor house that we're having it in. It's a nice big space, and we're excited to share stories. We have some great, we didn't even know them. People. It starts at 7:30, so come a little bit early to get a seat and be able to get us started on time. Yeah, it would be great to see people in the community.
And it's also on the website as well.
Yeah.
If they were to, okay, good. And then one of our listeners said that their child did receive one of the quilts.
Yay!
From St. Anthony's, and that's very, very exciting.
Yeah.
Wow. And our time is almost up. If there are any other questions, please ask now. And we could go on. I'm sure you could go on, Beverly, for another hour about.
Can I? Yeah.
Please.
I just want to put out a request.
Please.
Could everyone listening begin to have conversations with young people, just as a listener, being curious, what most concerns you. What do you, not to frighten them, but just really to touch base with them. And also with people who, I don't know, somehow I feel like I go out every day and I say hello to people. And when I resist saying it, I force myself to move forward again. You know what I mean? Like to just get comfortable with saying hello. That's my request.
Yes. And I hope people rise to that.
Yeah.
I would like to take a moment now. Tiffany is with us, and she's going to be with Karen. Karen going in. They're going to be doing a webinar tomorrow. And Tiffany, can you give us a little preview? And I'm sure, Beverly, you're going to love this about what's happening tomorrow.
So tomorrow's topic is pretty much geared towards moms, and we're just going to talk about, how their role in their families have changed since the pandemic, and what differences they have noticed in their children, maybe socially, how their families have adapted, and what we could do as a team to work together to help people get through whatever they're struggling with as moms.
Can I add on to that a little bit?
Sure.
That reminded me, Tiffany, that in the fall, the mental health team that I'm working on would love to hear some of those responses, because we're going to have a forum, a mental health forum, to provide public education and awareness that increases our understanding of mental health, illness, and resiliency. And we want people to come out. It'll be a panel discussion. And if parents that you're talking with tomorrow have needs that they can identify, I would also like to know what those needs are, and also have them show up in the fall and stay in touch with We The People Warwick, because I think working together, we need to know that. And I feel there's a lot of promise in the communication.
So most of our webinars are recorded. And we've found that a lot of people who don't attend go back later and listen to them.
Great.
So we could probably share that with you and see.
Great.
Yes, and I gave you our website, Beverly. teamupforhope.org is our website. I have to give kudos to also the Warwick Valley Preventive Coalition. Because that's where you and I met as well, Beverly.
Yeah.
A group that's put together and working with our youth, and they're doing a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful job. And I will attempt to copy their Facebook, Instagram, and website into the chat for you to copy. As a matter of fact, I do have something from someone that's plugged in. Just a huge debt of gratitude to Beverly for creating such an amazing pie program. My children are much better for it. So you're all aware as well, the video will be posted tonight or tomorrow as soon as the recording is done. So this is going to be out there live. And what I'm going to do, Tiffany, can you share with Beverly the time and for tomorrow? And
sure.
Who's available?
Yeah, great. Thank you.
I'll share the link with you. It's 7 p.m.
Yeah, please send it to me, because that'll be more of a sure way that I can get it. Okay, great. I'd love to. I didn't even think that I could probably be a part of that. Let's see what tomorrow might work out. Yeah.
Well, you could just chime in the chat
if
you want to speak.
Yeah.
So I just put in the chat the link for the Warwick Valley Preventive Coalition. I put their Instagram, their website, as well as their Facebook.
Can you add ours in for tomorrow night? I'm not sure how.
Okay, I don't have it in.
You have it on the Google Calendar, I think.
Now you're asking me to go to Google Calendar.
Well, that's what I don't know.
Yikes.
Where's Jane? Isn't Jane on here?
Jane, where'd you go?
Ask the youngins.
All set. It's in the chat. The registration.
I know.
She
Thank
did it with
goodness it
one
did.
hand holding a baby. And
I know, and I have, well, I only have one hand as well.
Thank
It
you,
was-
It
Jane.
was fun hanging out with you guys.
Thank you.
Oh, we
I
have a
want
lot
you
of
to know
fun.
someone, thank you, Carrie. We love Beverly and all that she does for the community. So there are people out there that know what you're doing and appreciate and love what you're doing. So Beverly, keep on doing it.
Yes,
Keep on being Beverly.
that's my mental health. I'm working. This is my mental health I'm doing.
Yeah. Beverly, I appreciate your time today and you and sharing some time with us here at Team Up for Hope. We hope to do another webinar with you again, and I would hope to have some youth as well as some young adults be a part, so we can hear straight from the horse's mouth what's going on out there. You know, that would be wonderful. Tiffany, thank you. Jane, thank you. All of you that plugged in, thank you. And you know,
Thank you, Wayne.
there is hope, and there is positive promise for tomorrow in our world and our future. Peace and love, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Bye-bye.
And until next time. And
Bye.
let's not forget our Memorial Day celebrations for those that have given their lives.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.